Every year on Football Manager, I put together a list of the best hidden Wonderkids in the entire game. 30 guys that don't play for big clubs or in big leagues that have crazy high potential, even though nobody had heard of most of them. But it's been over 2 years since Football Manager scouted these guys and put them in the last game. And we start with number 30, Daniel Daga from the Nigerian League. A 16-year-old that Football Manager found playing in the Nigerian League for Enyimba, a team that is called the People's Elephant, which is incredibly awesome. He's been till January 2025 playing for Enyimba and doing well, getting regular call-ups to the Nigerian youth national teams. He did well enough to earn himself a move to Molde FK in Norway, which he has joined this year. And while in the game, even Football Manager acknowledged that Daniel Daga had a long way to go. He has already become a rotational player at Molde this season. He's made 13 appearances, mostly off the bench, but has scored 5 goals. So the future might just be bright for this midfielder. Football Manager didn't really miss on this. Number 29. Goalkeeper from Brazil, Luiz Turato. He was just 17 when the list came out, and after bouncing around a couple of U20 teams in Brazil, he recently made a surprise move to the United Arab Emirates. This happened literally a month ago. He hasn't played for the team yet, but he has gotten a move out of Brazil, but he kind of failed to make an impression as a first-team player. And this is all evidenced by the fact that he doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. There's still a long way to go for Luiz Turato. Number 28, 19-year-old Slovenian center back Marcel Ratnik. A very different player to the other two. He's somebody that was already a regular for Olimpia Ljubljana, one of, if not the best team in the Slovenian league. As a result, Football Manager rated him as an already pretty good player that a lot of people ended up signing on Football Manager as he developed. He continued this trajectory in real life, ending up with 1 cap for the Slovenian national team, even though he hasn't really been called in recently. He ended his career at Olimpia Ljubljana with 110 appearances, and now at the age of 21, he was purchased for 2 million euros by Al Ain in the UAE. I don't know why these two guys ended up in the UAE back-to-back, but that's where Marcel Ratnik is now. We'll see if he becomes an international journeyman or ever makes a return to Europe, because he definitely was on the right track. And remember, every single one of these players was rated potential ability from 130 to 160 in Football Manager, which at the high end is the level of Casemiro, and at the low end is still a lower-level Premier League starter. Number 27, Jean Acurio. Well, Acurio has kind of flopped. I mean, he's only 18 years old, so there's still plenty of time. But he's still in the Ecuadorian League. He's done a loan down to the 2nd division of Ecuador, and he has essentially found no first-team playing time at his club, and no more playing time with the Ecuadorian national team setup either. Number 26, Marin Šotićek, who at the time he was included in the list was an 18-year-old winger for Lokomotiva in Croatia. After a successful year as part of Lokomotiva's first team, he got a summer move for 3 million euros to Basel in Switzerland, a team that is now heavily involved in European play. He spent last season playing at Basel and was a key part of a team that won the Swiss Super League for the first time in 8 years at the club. He's also become a regular with the Croatian under-21 national team. So Marin Šotićek definitely on Football Manager's track. Number 25, and if you're a fan of these lists or if you've watched me put them together on stream before, you've heard this name before. It's Oscar Pereira, the 17-year-old winger from Colombia. He would go on to make 44 first-team appearances for Atlético Nacional before getting scooped up by Blue Group. Strasbourg, the club that is owned by Chelsea, bought Oscar Pereira for 5.2 million euros and then promptly loaned him to the Portuguese league to a club called AVS. This guy had had a lot of hype for a couple of years out of the Colombian league. He did play a couple times for Strasbourg, but he hasn't been able to quite break through as an elite Wonderkid yet. He's made it to Europe though. Number 24, Filip Režic. Football Manager had him rated very highly as quite a good player, even though he had not, by the time he was entered into the game, made a first-team appearance for the club. And while the season following this Football Manager coming out, he would go on to make 6 appearances for Legia Warsaw. He's kind of flamed out. Consecutive free transfers to other teams in the top Polish league, but at no point has he been able to even equal his 6 league appearances for Legia Warsaw. Maybe this year at Katowice. He's already played for them once this season, and he might be able to turn into a regular, but it was a very late substitute appearance, so Filip Režic hasn't found it yet. Number 23. Jakob Napoleon Ramsas. A name that sounds like I came up with it when I was trying to be funny. One of the older guys on the list, he's already 19, playing for Tromsø in Norway, so definitely a better opportunity over the past couple of years for him to have turned into something resembling the potential Football Manager saw for him. And he did, to some extent. He became a very regular player for Tromsø, including being the best player in their Europa Conference League qualifying knockout match that they ended up losing, but still, he was kind of transcendent. He finished his Tromsø career with 57 appearances before booking a €1.5 million transfer to Charleroi in the Belgian league. At the very least, he's clearly set himself up for a long career as a professional footballer. For number 22, we're going to the opposite end of the age spectrum to find center back Marvin Akahoma, the youngest player on the list. He was 15 at the time that the database was locked. He turned 16 before the game came out, though, a youth player for Basel. And just to show you how much time has passed since this game came out, at the time I made this video, Basel was one of the worst teams in Switzerland, and obviously, as you heard earlier, they've turned it around to become the champions of Switzerland. The problem for Marvin Akahomen is that he wasn't there to celebrate. He was loaned out in the January window after making just 5 appearances over the last 2 years, and the loan to Will, he only got 5 more appearances. Now, it is impossible to be too hard on this kid because he kinda just turned 18 2 months ago. The Football Manager had him down as a real star, a left-footed, lanky, athletic center back, and that hasn't really emerged. He's still toiling in the youth teams waiting for his moment. For number 21, it's a player that some of you might have heard of if you're from England, Cameron Humphreys from Ipswich Town. Somebody that was rated as a player that would likely break into the first team as Ipswich pushed for promotion. Cameron Humphreys made only 3 appearances for Ipswich in their promotion campaign, and once they made it up to the Prem, he got loaned out to Wycombe Wanderers in League One, where he was an everyday player for Wycombe Wanderers, but he missed out on that chance to take the big step with his club. Now, of course, Ipswich got relegated, and now he's with the team and has already made 3 appearances for the club this season. So we might be looking at Cameron Humphreys' breakout year, in part courtesy of his club getting relegated. For number 20, we're headed back to the Colombian League. Miguel Monsalve, a guy who's one of the older players on this list and had already become a regular first-team player for Independiente Medellin, and he has kept that rolling. All right, Monsalve finished his career at Medellin with 75 appearances. He's made 13 appearances for the Colombian U20 national team, and he earned himself a move to one of the biggest teams in Brazil, Grêmio. I tried. They bought him for €2.3 million. So even though he didn't make a move to Europe, he is playing on the biggest stage you can play on in South America, and he's playing very regularly. He seemed like a can't-miss kind of hidden wonder kid and turned out to be right. And he's now in that golden zone for a European move, 21, 22 years old. We'll see if that materializes. Number 19, Nicolo Tresoldi. He was rocking up at Hanover and was rated as an all-around striker that could be dangerous in like every facet of the game. And the first big change was his nationality. He switched it up to play for the German national team and has made it up to the German U21s, where he has played 17 times. On the club side, he stayed at Hanover until this year, rounding out a career with 77 appearances, but just 14 goals. He did command the biggest transfer fee we've seen from any club so far from Club Bruges. €6 million, and Transfermarkt had him valued much higher than that at €9 million. And of course, if you've been following European football over the last 2 years, you know that Club Bruges is a very dangerous team that is in the Champions League once again, and they now have Nicolo Tresoldi, who's already made 5 appearances for the club. Everybody that's coached this kid seems to love him. He is on the track to really reach his max potential from FM. Number 18 a bit more off the beaten path, playing in Chile to be more exact. It's Lucas Asadi, the Chilean-Iranian left wing playing for Universidad de Chile, who already had 2 caps for the Chilean national team. But if you've been following World Cup qualifying, you'll know the Chilean national team has taken something of a nosedive. They are not going to the next World Cup. While Bolivia and Venezuela are still alive, Chile's already out. To be fair, by the time this comes out, one of Bolivia or Venezuela will be eliminated. I know that. I know. But Lucas Asadi has not been a part of that. He has actually not really taken a next step since we last saw him 2 years ago. He's still at Universidad de Chile. He's made nearly 100 appearances there now at the age of 21, and he has not made it back into the Chilean national team. You wonder if Iran could use a guy like this. But he's still behind number 17, Juan Jose Perez. Despite the fact that he had become a regular for America Quito, he really didn't capitalize on that hot early start to his career. He did a loan the year after this came out to a club called Emelec, but he never really found playing time there, and eventually his agent got involved and they got him sent back to America de Quito. After that, he was purchased by Colombian top league club Deportivo Pereira and promptly loaned out to Argentina to play for Godoy Cruz there. He made 13 appearances, went back to Colombia, and got loaned out to Gimnasia in the Argentine league. I don't really know exactly what the plan is here with the way these loans are working, but he's going to spend the next year at Gimnasia in Argentina. He's really just trying to find a club that he can stay at and play a regular complement of games over the course of a season, the way he was doing before this database came out. Number 16, we're staying in South America once again, going to the Uruguayan league for Anderson Duarte. Duarte would spend another year at Defensor Sporting, one of the best teams in the Uruguayan league, before he made his move to Toluca. It was a pretty big purchase by the Mexican club, nearly 4 million euros down to bring Anderson Duarte in. But as part of his development, they loaned him out to the club Mazatlan for a year. With Mazatlan, he's made 7 appearances. So while Europe might not be in his future, he has landed in a big money league in Mexico with the opportunity to scratch out a long career. And yet somehow, maybe because of how much I loved this guy in Football Manager, it feels like he's underachieved. But now we're in the top half. These guys were projected to be even better, obviously, than everybody we've looked at so far. So their failures will be under a bigger microscope, or their successes will be not appreciated as much because they were more expected. It's a tough spot to be in. 15. That starts with Marin Petkov of Bulgaria. Number 15 was Marin Petkov, a guy that had already made it into the Bulgarian national team at the time the database came out. And I mean, seriously, he'd already made 8 appearances for the national team on the database and been a regular at Levski Sofia. 81 appearances and 10 goals. Right, this guy seemed like the biggest surefire bet that he was just going to keep rolling. And he did. He's now made 152 appearances for Levski Sofia, and he's up to 17 caps for the Bulgarian national team at the age of 21. He's noted for his incredible versatility, having played everywhere from striker to wingback, which is, weirdly enough, something that had been noted by Football Manager. That is in his position chart. So he's having a great career, but the jury's out on whether he'll get out of the Bulgarian league or if he even wants to. Number 14 is the young Israeli forward Idan Toklomati. He played at Maccabi Petah Tikva at the time the database came out and was a big natural finisher, exciting player on Football Manager. And I had a feeling we were going to have one player that had this trajectory, but he has ended up in MLS for the time being. He spent one more year at Maccabi Petah Tikva, finishing that career with 63 appearances and 16 goals. Then Charlotte FC of MLS bought him for 3.5 million euros, and he has stepped into the first team with no hesitation in MLS. As a result, he's also cracked the Israeli national team to the tune of 4 appearances. He also had the opportunity to represent Benin, but he was born in Israel. Number 13 is also a very good player right now, Viktor Jukanovic, a Montenegrin player who is playing in Sweden for Hammarby. He'd already cracked his national team, obviously not the only guy on this list to have done that with Montenegro with 1 appearance, and had been rated incredibly highly as a player at the moment the database came out. Potential not needed, he was already a good player who is going to, according to the game, be a regular for Hammarby. And that is what happened. He played 1 season with Hammarby and made 37 appearances, scoring 13 goals. At that point, Hammarby looked to capitalize and loaned him out to Standard Liège in Belgium, and the loan deal had a buy option, but Standard Liège did not activate that option. So this season, he was loaned out to Dinasca Streda in Slovakia, and another loan deal with an option to buy. And that's probably going to be exercised, because he's made 21 appearances for Dinasca Streda, where at Standard Liège he only made 4. But if that 1 season he played at Hammarby proves anything, this guy is a very good winger. I'm not sure what has caused the stall after that. Number 12 is Philip Bungard. The guy starts the game wanted by Juventus, Inter, Bayern, all sorts of clubs. He's a guy that had already made 55 appearances for Randers in Denmark by the time the database was released. So this is a guy that in a pretty darn good European league was a serious regular as a teenager. Not only that, at one of the most important positions on the field. He could play anywhere in a front 4. Striker, attacking midfielder, left wing, right wing, you get it. But in real life, those moves did not materialize. Now, he did get a transfer. He ended up transferring to Brøndby for 3 million euros, but don't sleep on that too much. It's the biggest profit that Randers has ever made from a sale, and it is one of the biggest transfers in the history of the Danish Super League. Since the transfer, he's made 44 appearances for Brøndby, scoring 6 goals. So now at the age of 21, he's looking at well over 100 total appearances in the Danish Super League. The transfer market still has him valued around what he was purchased for, at about 2 million euros. So he hasn't taken that step to being a wonder kid that attracts interest from outside of Denmark, which is a surprise considering where he was in the game. Number 11 is Romanian left back Andre Borza, that had actually just completed a big near €1 million transfer right as the database had come out. The transfer was to Rapid Bucharesti in the Romanian league, where he still plays. He's made 71 appearances. He's still 19 years old, like 19 years old now, and he continues to be a regular for Rapid Bucharesti this season. But no big teams have come calling, and you've heard me say this word a few times in this video, yet. It's important to be fair to these kids. It's only been 2 years, as long as that 2 years is felt, particularly for Ipswich. But at long last, that brings us to the top 10, which starts with a second Slovenian, Luka Topalovic, a 17-year-old playmaking midfielder from Slovenia. That's right, multiple Slovenian dudes on this list. He was at Domžale at the start of the game, and he has moved to perhaps the biggest club of anybody on this list so far. He was purchased by Inter. To be fair to them, it's not a very long trip to scout. Slovenia's right next door. Inter bought him for nearly €1 million, and he's made 1 appearance for the Inter first team this past year. It was in May of 2025, a substitute appearance against Como. But other than that, he's been with Inter's U23s, so the jury is still out about whether Topalovic can actually break into the Inter first team. But he is on the team. Number 9, Franco Gonzalez, another 19-year-old on the list who had also just completed a massive $2 million transfer to the Uruguayan Giants senior role. He's like a midfielder, sometimes winger type guy whose current ability in the game is at a level where if you were a bad Premier League team, you could sign this guy and he would play for you right away. That was the level that Football Manager had already rated him at. But he has deviated remarkably from that point. And the reason is an injury, unfortunately. After his move to Peñarol, he made 25 appearances and then secured a loan to Iverdon Sport in Switzerland, where he suffered a serious leg injury that cut the loan short, and after terminating the loan, he moved back to Uruguay to recover. To try and get his game back, Peñarol loaned him out to La Equidad in the top Colombian league, where he is just starting to get his legs going again. He's made 3 appearances, hoping, obviously, for his sake, that he can get his legs back and get up to the level that Football Manager saw in him. Now, number 8 is a player that is just starting to become well-known. So well-known that a couple of German viewers in the chat while we were making this list were insisting he was already too well-known to be on it. But since he plays in the German 2nd division at Nuremberg, we thought we'd have Can Uzun anyways, because you may have not heard of him. A young Turkish playmaking midfielder who is at Nuremberg in Germany at the age of 17 and already making a huge impression. A ridiculously creative player with 17 flair on FM. And boy, has he delivered on the promise that Football Manager gave him. He made 33 appearances for Nuremberg, earning him a transfer to Eintracht Frankfurt, one of the best teams in Germany. The transfer broke the record for this list at €11 million, and it's paid off. He's already made 22 appearances for Eintracht Frankfurt, now entering his 2nd season with the club. He's also broken into the Turkish national team, making his debut towards the beginning of 2024, and he has 3 appearances. Oh yeah, he's also still only 19 years old. So an excellent hit by Football Manager here, as this kid has become the first out of this entire list, a regular in a top 5 league. Number 7 is Heriberto Jurado. The 7th best player is where the list finally took a step up in potential ability. When the database came out, he'd already made 40 appearances for Club Necaxa in the Mexican League, and he would stay there for 2 more years, finishing his career there with 83 appearances before making his move to Europe at Cercle Brugge. They forked over €1.65 million to bring Heriberto Jurado in, and he has since made 1 appearance at the start of this season. But his European journey is just beginning, which, to be honest, for most Mexican players, these days especially, never even starts. But with number 6, we are going to take a huge step up in level. Number 6 is 17-year-old Swede Lucas Bergvall. He was 17 years old at Djurgårdens at the time, and rather remarkably was rated as having the best possible personality and professionalism that you can have in the game. He, of course, spent 1 more year at Djurgården before cinching a move to Tottenham, playing 30 matches for Tottenham Hotspur, transfer, and of course being a part of the first trophy since 2009 for Tottenham, in case you didn't hear. The transfer fee was massive, by the way. They sent Djurgården £8.5 million. Not euros, pounds. It's over $10 million. As a result of the move and his subsequent performance, he has also broken into the Swedish national team, absolutely delivering on his promise. But he didn't have enough ability to break into the top 5. That was instead reserved for a player from, of all places, Sunderland, Chris Rigg. You might not have heard of this guy if you were not from England, but Chris Rigg was already making appearances at the age of 16 in the championship with Sunderland by the time the database came out. And he has stayed with Sunderland. Last year, making 42 league appearances for Sunderland in a promotion campaign at long last back to the Premier League, where he has already made 1 appearance for Sunderland. So not only has he continued to elevate his game and get serious playing time, he has elevated his club and is now a Premier League player, albeit for a newly promoted team, all while still being 18 years old, born in 2007. Now, number 4 has no issues with athleticism. This is a guy I get goals from him tweeted at me like once a week. Nestori Irankunda. And number 4 was somebody that I now have a personal connection to, Nestori Irankunda, the Australian wonder kid who was already known at the time that this database came out for scoring truly unbelievable goals in the Australian League. Irankunda is a show-stopping highlight reel type player, and he has used that to explode in the game in real life as well. Perhaps the zenith of all of this being that he got to appear beside me in his transfer announcement to Watford.
Careful there.
All right, training tomorrow at 7. I'll see you there. Yeah.
An honor that I'm sure at the end of his career, he will still look back on as his greatest achievement. In all seriousness, though, Irankunda is awesome. He was bought for about €1 million by Bayern from Adelaide United, and he never broke into the Bayern first team, so they struck a deal with Watford to basically send him on a transfer with a pretty low buyback in case he develops the way that they think that he might after going to Watford. And well, he's played 4 matches and scored 2 goals already for Watford, so he's well on the way. He did do a loan out from Bayern last season to Grasshopper in the Swiss League, where he made 21 appearances as well. So he has played top flight football in Europe before, and now in the English Championship has a chance to kind of prove his mettle. He was always a raw player. You're going to be when you come from as far flung as the Australian League, but he's showing signs of life and signs of a Wonderkid status still at the age of 19. And he's still scoring special goals. For number 3, we go back to Sweden. Jona Kusi Asare, an incredibly tall and threatening striker from Sweden who is making first-team appearances for AIK at 15 years old. And on the second straight player on this list, he was snapped up by Bayern Munich after just 4 first-team appearances with AIK. Somebody was playing Football Manager on this one. They signed him for €4.5 million, and he made 2 appearances for Bayern towards the end of last season. But that didn't lead to him getting further inclusion this year. He's actually been loaned to the Premier League to Fulham with an option to buy. So we'll see if he proves himself in the Prem, and if he does, he might become a Premier League mainstay instead. Number 2 is David Martinez from Venezuela, a 17-year-old winger from Venezuela who is still playing in the Venezuelan league. It was already rated this highly by Football Manager. Venezuela, of course, the only team from South America, in South American qualifying at least, that has never made it to the World Cup. But David Martinez was on a quest to change that. He'd already gotten into the national team when the database came out. The problem is, he's only made 1 appearance since then. But it wasn't just Football Manager that had David Martinez flagged as one of the great players of the future. The Guardian named him as one of the best players born in 2006. He left Monagas in 2024 and headed to LAFC in MLS for a fee of €3.2 million. LAFC being one of the best teams in MLS, and he has become a very regular player for them. So kind of surprised he's not been more involved for the national team, considering he's still just 19 years old and he's made 38 appearances for one of MLS's best teams. There is still a very bright future ahead of David Martinez, and it might include the World Cup, because Venezuela, as I'm recording this anyway, is in the driver's seat for a spot in the Intercontinental Playoff to potentially make their first World Cup. And I'd be willing to wager this guy would be there if they did. He was born in Tiger, Venezuela. That is sick. Need more animal names for cities. But number 1 on the list of best hidden wonder kids was in a class of his own when this game came out. And you might recognize his name now. No one on this list, literally no one, has the same potential as the best hidden wonder kid in Football Manager this year, Sverre Halseth Nippon, a 16-year-old at the time playing at Rosenborg in the Norwegian League. When the database came out, he was already playing regularly for Rosenborg in the league and in Europe at the age of 16. And after another year or two at that level, he was purchased by Manchester City for 15 million euros. You might have heard about this transfer because Football Manager players everywhere were crying they would no longer be able to sign this kid. City did not buy him to play, however, they bought him and then loaned him to Middlesbrough, where he will play the rest of this season. But Sverre Halseth Nippon is still 18 years of age, and given that amount of money that was just spent by Manchester City to bring him in, he still has a very, very bright future, and a lot of first-team experience for a kid that's 18 years old. But who do you think was the most successful scouting job by Football Manager? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on stream.